So I'm going to start with a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation, then we're going to go into the software itself and just give you a quick rundown of how jobs are configured and how they run. So this is an integration architecture for our connector for SXE, and you'll just see quickly kind of in the middle here the different endpoints that we're talking to. So customer, product, units of measure by product, customer products, etc. And you'll notice these different sort of lines about how we talk to each other. So these are scheduled database or refreshes, we call them. So those are refresh jobs that'll typically run at night, and they'll kick off automatically through our job scheduler, and they'll query the data, grab the data, and sync it up with the website. Those are chained, so as they complete, they'll run one after another. The real-time calls, things like inventory and pricing, although these can be done as refreshes as well, and you can schedule them to run more frequently than once a day. Those are often done, and our standard connector does those as real-time calls. So we're always looking at current inventory and current pricing for any given customer. The order simulation is used often for tax calculations. So if you've got a tax calculation software within the ERP that we don't want to replicate as a separate tax calculator within InsiteCommerce, we just do a kind of a quote or an order simulation, we call it, back to the ERP to grab that data back. And finally, the order submission itself. Other things you'll notice here are credit card fund capture and credit card authorization. Taxes and credit cards are sort of a separate conversation. Those typically are not done through the integration architecture. Those are done as direct integrations. We've got a series of payment gateways that we work with. We make sure that we work with the same gateways that the ERPs work with, so we can get an authorization token and pass that directly into the ERP. This is the organization in terms of how the architecture works. So what you'll see up here is the website is up here, and that's running under IIS. And when a job is required to run, it puts it on a job queue. So there's a job list that's out there that's defined to specific endpoints. So from a security standpoint, this job list will talk to this Windows integration service or integration agent down here running behind the firewall. It does that by phoning home in a configured amount of time, usually every 30 seconds. There's also a real-time connection that runs every half second. And it uses the site connections table right over here to define what the endpoints are that it's talking to. On the website, it defines that by making sure that the connection name is identical and has a white list of machine names that it can talk to. So we not only have just sort of standard user authentication with the integration role, we also make sure that we're only speaking to the servers that we're supposed to speak to. So the idea is that this Windows integration service has access to the back-end systems, and that's done through connections that are defined in the website. This is kind of the architectural layout of the way it works. I'm going to walk through a number of these components on screens to show you, for example. But the idea is that we've got these connections that define how we can talk to the data. We have data selection, what data we're going to get out of the ERP, and then how that maps into the data in the website. We have, for extension points, these pre-processor, a post-processor that runs on the server, and an integration processor that runs directly on the integration service. What this allows us to do is, for those circumstances where we need to precondition the data, manipulate the data in code, or do something more unusual like send the data to an FTP site or something like that, we can do that by introducing these processors. These are standard injection and extension points to our platform that allow this entire framework to be extended to do all sorts of things other than just straight ERP integration. A couple other sort of interesting little things. One is the chunker here. What that does is if we get a data set that's quite large, let's say 500 megabytes, rather than trying to send that up as one single stream up to the website, we chunk that up into pieces, and only when those pieces are acquired, once the last piece is gathered, then the integration, the processor, the post-processor starts to run. We have a full audit of our integration. Every job has an audit and has an audit log. You can turn debugging on the audit log, so it allows you to see any potential problems. It logs errors and warnings depending on how you configure the job. Another unique thing about the way we do the integration is what's called delta data. So you can set up the job so that it takes a snapshot of the information, compares it to the last successfully applied snapshot, and only sends up the net changes, adds changes and deletes. If something doesn't get applied, so the job doesn't finish completely, say it finishes with warnings or errors for some reason, that data set will not get overwritten until it has a successful conclusion. So it makes sure that you don't miss a transaction or miss some data that got changed in the interim.